Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bibliobibly and Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. And it's the perfect time of year to be reading Harry Potter since it is officially Spooktober.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It is spooky season. For those of you in the United States, you know we take Halloween very seriously here.
You think Jackson's happy about Spooktober?
I think Jackson's very
Or do you
happy
think
about
he's
Spooktober.
just salty because only black cats get noticed during Spooktober? It's like, but I'm orange. Pumpkins are orange, therefore I am a spooky cat.
He's a pumpkin boy.
That's what I'm saying.
But black cats get shunned the rest of the year. Let them have this.
That's true.
Last time
we discovered how Marvolo was framed for the Riddle's murder.
Morphin.
I feel like we had another conversation where I messed that up. It doesn't matter. So we found out that Tom Riddle had framed him for the murder of the Riddles.
I made a Harry Potter joke and you couldn't remember who Morphin was.
Oh, yeah. I just thought of Morph from Treasure Planet.
Treasure Planet, yep.
That was it. Moving on, that was the first memory. Second memory pops up and we find that Slughorn may have been hiding a little something in his memories. He said something that he doesn't want Dumbledore Harry to know. To Tom Riddle.
About?
Well, Voldemort at that point. The Horcrux. Whatever that is.
The Horcrux. And Dumbledore assigned Harry to get the real memory.
Oh, yeah.
Told him he needs to get the real memory. However...
Guess we'll find out how he manages that.
Yeah, we'll see, won't we?
Slughorn, I won't come to one of your parties unless...
You tell me. What happened that evening? I think he's ready. Holy crap, you're a happy man this morning. Chapter 18. Birthday Surprises. The next day, Harry confided in both Ron and Hermione the task that Dumbledore had set him, though separately, for Hermione still refused to remain in Ron's presence longer than it took to give him a contemptuous look. Ron thought Harry was unlikely to have any trouble with Slughorn at all. "He loves you," he said over breakfast, waving an airy forkful of fried egg. "Won't refuse you anything, will he? Not his little potions, Prince. Just hang back after class this afternoon and ask him." Hermione, however, took a gloomier view. "He must have been determined to hide what really happened if Dumbledore couldn't get it out of him," she said in a low voice as they stood in the deserted, snowy courtyard at break. Horcruxes. Horcruxes. I've never even heard of them." "You haven't?" Harry was disappointed. He'd hoped Hermione might have been able to give him a clue as to what Horcruxes were. "They must be really advanced dark magic, or why would Voldemort have wanted to know about them? I think it's going to be difficult to get the information, Harry. You'll have to be very careful about how you approach Slughorn. Think out a strategy." "Ron reckons I should just hang back after potions this afternoon." "Oh, well, if Won-Won thinks that, you better do it," she said, flaring up at once. "After all, when has Won-Won's judgment ever been faulty?" "Hermione, can't you—" "No!" she said angrily and stormed away, leaving Harry alone and ankle-deep in snow. Potions lessons were uncomfortable enough these days, seeing as Harry, Ron and Hermione had to share a desk. Today, Hermione moved her cauldron round the table so she was closer to Ernie and ignored both Harry and Ron. "What have you done?" Ron muttered to Harry, looking at Hermione's haughty profile. But before Harry could answer, Slughorn was calling for silence from the front of the room. Settle down, please. Quickly now, lots of work to get through this afternoon. Galpalot's third law. Who can tell me—" "But Miss Granger can, of course," Hermione recited at top speed. "Galpalot's third law states the antidote for a blended poison will be equal to more than the sum of the antidotes for each of the separate components." "Precisely," beamed Slughorn. 10 points for Gryffindor. Now, if we accept Galpalot's third law is true—" Harry was going to have to take Slughorn's word for it that Galpalot's third law was true, because he had not understood any of it. Nobody apart from Hermione seemed to be following what Slughorn said next either.
"Which means, of course, that assuming we have achieved correct identification of the potion's ingredients by Scarpin's Reveille spell, our primary aim is not the relatively simple one of selecting antidotes for those ingredients in and of themselves, but to find the added component that will, by an almost alchemical process, transform these desperate elements."
Ron was sitting beside Harry with his mouth half open, doodling absently on his new copy of Advanced Potion Making. Ron kept forgetting that he could no longer rely on Hermione to help him out of trouble when he failed to grasp what was going on.
"And so," finished Slughorn, "I want each of you to come and take one of these phials from my desk. You are to create an antidote for the poison within it before the end of the lesson. Good luck, and don't forget your protective gloves."
Hermione had left her stool and was halfway towards Slughorn's desk before the rest of the class had realised it was time to move, and by the time Harry, Ron and Ernie returned to the table, she'd already tipped the contents of her phial into her cauldron and was kindling a fire beneath it. "It's a shame that the prince won't be able to help you so much with this one, Harry," she said brightly as she straightened up. "You have to understand the principles involved this time. No shortcuts or cheats." Annoyed, Harry uncorked the poison that he'd taken from Slughorn's desk, which was a garish shade of pink, tipped it into his cauldron and lit a fire beneath it. He did not have the faintest idea what he was supposed to do next. He glanced round at Ron, who was now standing there looking rather gormless, having copied everything Harry had done. "You're sure the prince hasn't got any tips?" Ron muttered to Harry. Harry pulled out his trusty copy of Advanced Potion Making and turned to the chapter on antidotes. There was Galpalot's third law, stated word for word as Hermione had recited it, but not a single illuminating note in the prince's hand to explain what it meant. Apparently the prince, like Hermione, had no difficulty in understanding it. "Nothing," said Harry gloomily. Hermione was now waving her wand enthusiastically over her cauldron. Unfortunately, they could not copy the spell she was doing because she was now so good at non-verbal incantations that she did not need to say the words aloud. Ernie Macmillan, however, was muttering "Specialis Revelio" over his cauldron, which sounded impressive, so Harry and Ron hastened to imitate him. It took Harry only 5 minutes to realise that his reputation as the best potion maker in class was crashing around his ears. Slughorn had peered hopefully into his cauldron on his first circuit of the dungeon, preparing to exclaim in delight as he usually did, but had instead withdrawn his head hastily, coughing as the smell of bad eggs overwhelmed him. Hermione's expression could not have been any smugger. She had loathed being outperformed in every potions class. She was now decanting the mysteriously separated ingredients of her poison into 10 different crystal phials. More to avoid watching this irritating sight than anything else, Harry bent over the Half-Blood Prince's book and turned a few pages with unnecessary force. And there it was, scrawled right across a long list of antidotes. Just shove a bezoar down their throats. Harry stared at these words for a moment. Hadn't he once long ago heard of bezoars? Hadn't Snape mentioned them in their first ever potions lesson? A stone taken from the stomach of a goat which will protect from most poisons. It was not an answer to the Golpalot problem, and had Snape still been their teacher, Harry would not have dared to do it, but this was a moment for desperate measures. He hastened toward the store cupboard and rummaged within it, pushing aside unicorn horns and tangles of dried herbs until he found, at the very back, a small cardboard box on which had been scribbled the word bezoars. He opened the box just as Slughorn called, 2 minutes left, everyone! Inside were half a dozen shriveled brown objects looking more like dried-up kidneys than real stones. Harry seized one, put the box back in the cupboard, and hurried back to the cauldron. "Time's up," called Slughorn genially. "Well, let's see what you've done. Blaise, what have you got for me?" Slowly, Slughorn moved round the room, examining the various antidotes. Nobody had finished the task, although Hermione was trying to cram a few more ingredients into a bottle before Slughorn reached her. Ron had given up completely and was merely trying to avoid breathing in the putrid foams issuing from his cauldron. Harry stood there waiting, the bezoar clutched in a slightly sweaty hand. Slughorn reached their table last. He sniffed Ernie's potion and passed on to Ron's with a grimace. He did not linger over Ron's cauldron, but backed away swiftly, retching slightly. "And you, Harry," he said, "what have you got to show me?" Harry held out his hand, the bezoar sitting in his palm. Slughorn looked down at it for a full 10 seconds. Harry wondered for a moment whether he was going to shout at him. Then he threw back his head and roared with laughter. "Oh, you've got nerve, boy!" he boomed, taking the bezoar and holding it up so the class can see it.
Oh, you're like your mother. Well, I can't fault you. A bezoar would certainly act as an antidote to all of these potions.
Hermione, who was sweaty-faced and had soot on her nose, looked livid. Her half-finished antidote, comprising 52 ingredients, including a chunk of her own hair, bubbled sluggishly behind Slughorn, who had eyes for no one but Harry. "And you thought of a bezoar all by yourself, did you, Harry?" she asked through gritted teeth.
That's the individual spirit of a real potion maker, said Slughorn happily before Harry could reply. Just like his mother, she had the same intuitive grasp of potion making. It's undoubtedly from Lily he gets it. Yes, Harry, yes, you've got a bezoar to hand. Of course that would do the trick. Although as they don't work on everything and are pretty rare, it's still worth knowing how to mix antidotes.
The only person in the room looking angrier than Hermione was Malfoy, who Harry was pleased to see had spilled something that looked like catsick all over him. Before either of them could express their fury that Harry had come top of the class by not doing any work, however, the bell rang.
"Time to pack up," said Slughorn. "And an extra 10 points to Gryffindor, for sheer cheek."
Still chuckling, he waddled back to his desk at the front of the dungeon. Harry dawdled behind, taking an inordinate amount of time to do up his bag. Neither Ron nor Hermione wished him luck as they both left, looking rather annoyed. At last Harry and Slughorn were the only two left in the room.
"Come on now, Harry, you'll be late for your next lesson,"
said Slughorn affably, snapping the gold clasp shut on his dragon-skin briefcase. "Sir," he said, reminding himself irresistibly of Voldemort, "I wanted to ask you something."
"Ask away then, my dear boy, ask away."
"Sir, I wondered what you know about Horcruxes." Slughorn froze. His round face seemed to sink in upon itself. He licked his lips and said hoarsely,
"What did you say?"
"I asked you whether you know anything about Horcruxes, sir. You see—"
"Dumbledore put you up to this,"
whispered Slughorn. His voice had changed completely. It was not genial any more, but shocked, terrified. He fumbled in his breast pocket and pulled out a handkerchief, mopping his sweaty brow.
"Dumbledore's shown you that memory. Well, hasn't he?"
"Yes," said Harry, deciding on the spot that it was best not to lie.
"Yes, of course,"
said Slughorn quietly, still dabbing at his white face.
"Of course. Well, if you've seen that memory, Harry, you'll know I don't know anything. Anything," he repeated the word forcefully, "about Horcruxes."
He seized his dragon-skin briefcase, stuffed his handkerchief back into his pocket, and marched to the dungeon door. "Sir," said Harry desperately, "I just thought there might be a bit more to the memory."
"Did you?" said Slughorn. "Then you were wrong, weren't you? Wrong!"
He bellowed the last word, and before Harry could say another word, slammed the dungeon door behind him. Neither Ron nor Hermione were at all sympathetic when Harry told them of this disastrous interview. Hermione was still seething at the way Harry had triumphed without doing the work properly. Ron was resentful that Harry hadn't slipped him a bezoar too. "Well, it would have just looked stupid if we'd both done it," said Harry irritably. "Look, I had to try and soften him up so I could ask him about Voldemort, didn't I? Oh, get a grip!" he added in exasperation as Ron winced at the sound of the name. Infuriated by his failure and by Ron and Hermione's attitudes, Harry brooded for the next few days over what to do next with Slughorn. He decided that for the time being he would let Slughorn think he'd forgotten all about Horcruxes. It was surely best to lull him into a false sense of security before returning to attack. When Harry did not question Slughorn again, the potions master reverted to his usual affectionate treatment of him, and appeared to have put the matter out of his mind. Harry waited on an invitation to one of his little evening parties, determined to accept this time, even if he had to reschedule Quidditch practice. Unfortunately, however, no such invitation arrived. Harry checked with Hermione and Ginny. Neither of them had received an invitation, and nor, as far as they knew, had anyone else. Harry could not help wondering whether this meant Slughorn was not as forgetful as he appeared, simply determined to give Harry no additional opportunities to question him. Meanwhile, the Hogwarts library had failed Hermione for once and the first time in living memory. She was so shocked, she even forgot that she was annoyed at Harry for his trick with the bezoar. "I haven't found one single explanation of what Horcruxes do," she told him. "Not a single one. I've been right through the restricted section and even in the most horrible books. All I could find was this in the introduction to Magic Most Evil. Listen. Of the Horcrux, wickedest of magical inventions, we shall not speak nor give direction." "I mean, why mention it then?" she said impatiently, slamming the old book shut. It let out a ghostly wail. "Oh, shut up," she snapped, stuffing it back into her bag. The snow melted round the school as February arrived, to be replaced by cold, dreary wetness. Purplish-grey clouds hung low over the castle, and a constant fall of chilly rain made the lawns slippery and muddy. The upshot of this was that the 6th year's first apparition lesson, which was scheduled for a Saturday morning so that normal lessons would be missed, took place in the Great Hall instead of the grounds. When Harry and Hermione arrived in the hall, Ron had come down with Lavender, they found that the tables had disappeared. Rain lashed against the high windows, and the enchanted ceiling swirled darkly above them as they assembled in front of Professors McGonagall, Snape, Flitwick, and Sprout, the heads of houses, and a small wizard whom Harry took to be the apparitions instructor from the Ministry. He was oddly colourless, with transparent eyelashes, wispy hair, and an insubstantial air, as though a single gust of wind might blow him away. Harry wondered whether constant disappearances and reappearances had somehow diminished his substance, or whether his frail build was ideal for anyone wishing to vanish. "Good morning," said the Ministry wizard when all of the students had arrived and the head of houses had called for quiet. "My name is Wilkie Twycross, and I shall be your Ministry apparition instructor for the next 12 weeks. I hope to be able to prepare you for your apparition tests in this time." "Malfoy, be quiet and pay attention," barked Professor McGonagall. Everyone looked round. Malfoy had flushed a dull pink. He looked furious as he stepped away from Crabbe, with whom he apparently had been having a whispered argument. Harry glanced quickly at Snape, who also looked annoyed, though Harry strongly suspected that this was less because of Malfoy's rudeness than the fact that McGonagall had reprimanded one of his house. "By the time many of you will be able to take your tests," Twycross continued, as though there'd been no interruption. "As you may know, it is usually impossible to apparate or disapparate within Hogwarts. The headmaster has lifted this enchantment purely within the Great Hall for 1 hour, so as to enable you to practice. May I emphasize that you will not be able to apparate outside the walls of this hall, and that it would be unwise to try. I would like each one of you to place yourselves now so that you have a clear 5 feet of space in front of you." There was a great scrambling and jostling as people separated, banged into each other, and ordered others out of their space. The heads of houses moved among the students, marshalling them into position and breaking up arguments. "Harry, where are you going?" demanded Hermione. But Harry did not answer. He was moving quickly through the crowd, past the place where Professor Flitwick was making squeaky attempts to position a few Ravenclaws, all of whom wanted to be near the front, past Professor Sprout, who was chivying the Hufflepuffs into line, until, by dodging around Ernie Macmillan, he managed to position himself right at the back of the crowd, directly behind Malfoy, who was taking advantage of the general upheaval to continue his argument with Crabbe, standing 5 feet away and looking mutinous. "I don't know how much longer, all right," Malfoy shot at him, oblivious to Harry standing right behind him. "It's taking longer than I'd thought it would." Crabbe opened his mouth, but Malfoy appeared to second-guess what he was going to say. "Look, it's none of your business what I'm doing, Crabbe. You and Goyle just do as you're told and keep a lookout." "I tell my friends what I'm up to if I want them to keep a lookout for me," Harry said, just loud enough for Malfoy to hear him. Malfoy spun round on the spot, his hand flying to his wand, but at that precise moment the 4 heads of houses shouted, "Quiet!" and silence fell again. Malfoy turned slowly to face the front again. "Thank you," said Twycross. "Now then." He waved his wand. Old-fashioned wooden hoops instantly appeared on the floor in front of every student. "The important things to remember when apparating are the 3 Ds, said Twycross. Destination, determination, deliberation. Step 1. Fix your mind firmly upon the desired destination, said Twycross. In this case, the interior of your hoop. Kindly concentrate upon that destination now. Everyone looked round furtively to check that everyone else was staring into their hoop, then hastily did as they were told. Harry gazed at the circular patch of dusty floor enclosed by his hoop and tried hard to think of nothing else. This proved impossible, as he couldn't stop puzzling over what Malfoy was doing that needed lookouts. Step 2, said Twycross. Focus your determination to occupy that visualized space. Let your yearning to enter it flood from your mind to every particle of your body. Harry glanced round surreptitiously. A little way to his left, Ernie Macmillan was contemplating his hoop so hard that his face had turned pink. It looked as though he was straining to lay a quaffle-sized egg. Harry bit back a laugh and hastily returned to gaze at his own hoop. Step 3, called Twycross, and only when I give the command, turn on the spot, feeling your way into nothingness, moving into deliberation. On my command now. 1. Harry glanced round again. A lot of people were looking positively alarmed at being asked to apparate so quickly. 2. Harry tried to fix his thoughts on his hoop again. He'd already forgotten what the 3 Ds stood for. 3. Harry spun on the spot, lost balance, and nearly fell over. He was not the only one. The whole hall was full of staggering people. Neville was flat on his back. Ernie Macmillan, on the other hand, had done a kind of pirouetting leap into his hoop and looked momentarily thrilled until he caught sight of Dean Thomas roaring with laughter at him. Never mind, said Twycross dryly, who did not seem to have expected anything better. Adjust your hoops, please, and back to your original positions. The second attempt was no better than the first. The third was just as bad. Not until the fourth did anything exciting happen. There was a horrible screech of pain, and everyone looked round, terrified, to see Susan Bones of Hufflepuff wobbling in her hoop, with her left leg still standing 5 feet from where she'd started. The heads of house converged on her. There was a great bang and a puff of purple smoke, which cleared to reveal Susan sobbing, reunited with her leg, but looking horrified. Splinching, or the separation of random body parts, said Wilkie Twycross dispassionately, occurs when the mind is insufficiently determined. You must concentrate continuously on your destination and move without haste, but with deliberation. Twycross stepped forward, turned gracefully on the spot with his arms outstretched, and vanished in a swirl of robes, reappearing at the back of the hall. Remember the 3 Ds, he said again, and try again. 1, 2, 3. But an hour later, Susan's splinching was still the most interesting thing that happened. Twycross did not seem discouraged. Fastening his cloak on his back, he merely said, Until next Saturday, everybody, and do not forget, destination, determination, deliberation. With that he waved his wand, vanishing the hoops, and walked out of the hall, accompanied by Professor McGonagall. Talk broke out at once as people began moving toward the entrance hall. How'd you do? Asked Ron, hurrying toward Harry. I think I felt something the last time I tried, a kind of tingling in my feet. I expect your trainers are too small, 1-1, said a voice behind them, and Hermione stalked past, smirking. I didn't feel anything, said Harry, ignoring this interruption. But I don't care about that now. What do you mean you don't care? Don't you want to learn about apparating? Don't you want to learn how to apparate? Said Ron incredulously. I'm not fussed, really. I prefer flying, said Harry, glancing over his shoulder to see where Malfoy was, and speeding up as they came into the entrance hall. Look, hurry up, will you? There's something I want to do. Perplexed, Ron followed Harry back to Gryffindor Tower at a run. They were temporarily detained by Peeves, who jammed a door on the 4th floor shut and was refusing to let anyone pass until they set fire to their own pants, but Harry and Ron simply turned back and took one of their trusted shortcuts. Within 5 minutes they were climbing through the portrait hole. Are you going to tell me what we're doing, then? Asked Ron, panting slightly. Up here, said Harry, and he crossed the common room and led the way through the door to the boys' staircase. The dormitory was, as Harry had hoped, empty. He flung open his trunk and began to rummage in it while Ron watched patiently. Harry! Malfoy's using Crabbe and Goyle as lookouts. He was arguing with Crabbe just now. I want to know— Aha! He'd found it, a folded square of apparently blank parchment, which he now smoothed out and tapped with the tip of his wand. I solemnly swear that I'm up to no good. Or Malfoy is, anyway. At once the Marauders' map appeared on the parchment surface. Here was a detailed plan of every one of the castle's floors, and moving round it the tiny labelled black dots that signified each of the castle's occupants. Help me find Malfoy, said Harry urgently. He laid the map on his bed, and he and Ron leaned over it, searching. There, said Ron after a minute or two. He's in the Slytherin common room, look, with Parkinson and Zabini and Crabbe and Goyle. Harry looked down at the map, disappointed, but rallied at once. Well, I'm keeping an eye on him from now on, he said firmly, and the moment I see him lurking somewhere with Crabbe and Goyle keeping watch outside, it'll be on with the old invisibility cloak and off to find out what he's— He broke off as Neville entered the dormitory, bringing with him a strong smell of singed material, and began rummaging in his own trunk for a fresh pair of pants. Despite his determination to catch Malfoy out, Harry had no luck at all over the next few weeks. Although he consulted the map as often as he could, sometimes making unnecessary visits to the bathroom between lessons to search it, he did not once see Malfoy anywhere suspicious. Admittedly, he spotted Crabbe and Goyle moving about the castle on their own more often than usual, sometimes remaining stationary in deserted corridors, but at these times Malfoy was not only nowhere to be seen, but impossible to locate on the map at all. This was most mysterious. Harry toyed with the possibility Malfoy was actually leaving the school grounds, but could not see how he could be doing it, given the very high level of security now operating within the castle. He could only suppose he was missing Malfoy amongst the hundreds of tiny black dots on the map. As for the fact that Malfoy, Crabbe and Goyle appeared to be going their different ways when they were usually inseparable, these things happened as people got older. Ron and Hermione, Harry reflected sadly, were living proof. February moved into March with no change in the weather except that it became windy as well as wet. To general indignation, a sign went up on all common room notice boards that the next trip into Hogsmeade had been cancelled. Ron was furious. "It was on my birthday," he said. "I was looking forward to that." "Not a big surprise, though, is it?" said Harry. "Not after what happened to Katie." She had still not returned from St. Mungo's. What was more, further disappearances had been reported in the Daily Prophet, including several relatives of students at Hogwarts. "Well, now all I've got to look forward to is stupid apparition," said Ron grumpily. "Big birthday treat." 3 lessons on, apparition was proving as difficult as ever, though a few more people had managed to splinch themselves. Frustration was running high, and there was a certain amount of ill feeling toward Wilkie Twycross and his 3Ds, which had inspired a number of nicknames for him, the politest of which were Dog Breath and Dunghead. "Happy birthday, Ron," said Harry when they were woken up on the 1st of March by Seamus and Dean leaving noiselessly for breakfast. "Have a present." He threw the package across onto Ron's bed, where it joined a pile of them that must, Harry have assumed, been delivered by the house elves in the night. "Cheers," said Ron drowsily, and as he ripped off the paper, Harry got out of bed, opened his own trunk, and began rummaging in it for the Marauders map, which he hid after every use. He tripped over half the contents of his truck before he found it hiding beneath the rolled-up socks, on which he was still keeping his bottle of his lucky potion, Felix Felicis. "Right," he murmured, taking it back to the bed with him, tapping it quietly, and murmured, "I solemnly swear that I'm up to no good," so that Neville, who was passing the foot of his bed at the time, could not hear. "Nice one, Harry," said Ron enthusiastically, waving the new pair of Quidditch keeper's gloves Harry had given him. "No problem," said Harry absent-mindedly, as he searched the Slytherin common room closely for Malfoy. "Hey, I don't think he's in bed." Ron did not answer. He was too busy unwrapping presents, every now and then letting out an exclamation of pleasure. "Seriously good haul this year," he announced, holding up a heavy gold watch with odd symbols around the edge and tiny moving stars instead of hands. "See what Mum and Dad got me? Blimey, I think I'll come of age next year, too." "Cool," said Harry, sparing the watch a glance before peering more closely at the map. Where was Malfoy? He didn't seem to be at the Slytherin table in the Great Hall eating breakfast. He was nowhere near Snape, who was sitting in his study. He wasn't in any of the bathrooms or in the hospital wing. "Want one?" said Ron, holding out a box of chocolate cauldrons. "No, thanks," said Harry, looking up. "Malfoy's gone again." "Can't have done," said Ron, stuffing a second cauldron into his mouth as he slid out of bed to get dressed. "Come on, if you don't hurry up, you'll have to apparate on an empty stomach. Might make it easier, I suppose." Ron looked thoughtfully at the box of chocolate cauldrons, then shrugged and helped himself to a third. Harry tapped the map with his wand and muttered, "Mischief managed," though it hadn't, and got dressed thinking hard. There had to be an explanation for Malfoy's periodic disappearances, but he could simply not think of what it could be. The best way of finding out would be to tail him, but even with the invisibility cloak that was an impractical idea. Harry had lessons, Quidditch practice, homework, and apparition. He couldn't follow Malfoy around school all day without his absence being remarked upon. "Ready?" he said to Ron. He was halfway to the dormitory door when he realized Ron hadn't moved, but was leaning on his bedpost staring out at the rain-washed window with a strangely unfocused look on his face. "Ron, breakfast." "I'm not hungry." He stared at him. "I thought you just said—" "Well, all right, I'll come down with you," sighed Ron. "But I don't want to eat." Harry scrutinized him suspiciously. "You've just eaten half a box of chocolate cauldrons, haven't you?" "It's not that." Ron sighed again. You wouldn't understand." "Fair enough," said Harry, albeit puzzled as he turned to open the door. "Harry!" said Ron suddenly. "What?" "Harry, I can't stand it." "You can't stand what?" asked Harry, now starting to feel definitely alarmed. Ron was rather pale and looked as though he were about to be sick. "I can't stop thinking about her," said Ron hoarsely. Harry gaped at him. He'd not expected this and was not sure he wanted to hear it. Friends they might be, but if Ron started calling Lavender Lav-Lav, he would have to put his foot down. "Why does that stop you from having breakfast?" Harry asked, trying to inject a note of common sense into the proceedings. "I don't think she knows I exist," said Ron with a desperate gesture. She definitely knows you exist, said Harry, bewildered. She keeps snogging you, doesn't she? Ron blinked. Who are you talking about? Who are you talking about? Said Harry, with an increased sense that all reason had dropped from the conversation. Romilda Vane, said Ron softly, and his whole face seemed to illuminate as he said it, as though hit by a ray of purest sunlight. They stared at each other for almost a whole minute before Harry said, This is a joke, right? You're joking. Harry, I think I love her, said Ron in a strangled voice. Okay, said Harry, walking up to Ron to get a better look at the glazed eyes and the pallid expression. Okay, say that again with a straight face. I love her, repeated Ron breathlessly. Have you seen her hair? It's all black and shiny and silky. And her eyes, her big dark eyes. And her... This is really funny and everything, said Harry impatiently, but the joke's over, all right? Drop it. He turned to leave. He got 2 steps toward the door when a crashing blow hit him hard on the right ear. Staggering, he looked round. Ron's fist was drawn right back. His face was contorted with rage. He was about to strike again. Harry reacted instinctively. His wand was out of his pocket, and the incantation sprang to mind without conscious thought. Levi Corpus. Ron yelled as his heel was wrenched upward once more. He dangled helplessly upside down, his robes hanging off him. What was that for? Harry bellowed. You insulted her, Harry. You said it was a joke, shouted Ron, who was slowly turning purple in the face as all the blood rushed to his head. This is insane, said Harry. What's got into... And then he saw the box lying open on Ron's bed, and the truth hit him with the force of a stampeding troll. Where did you get those chocolate cauldrons? They were a birthday present, shouted Ron, revolving slowly in mid-air as he struggled to get free. I offered you one, didn't I? You just picked them up off the floor, didn't you? They'd fallen off my bed, all right. Let me go. They didn't fall off your bed, you prat. Don't you understand? They were mine. I chucked them out of my trunk when I was looking for the map. They're the chocolate cauldrons Romilda gave me before Christmas, and they're all spiked with love potion. But only one word of this seemed to have registered with Ron. Romilda? He repeated. Did you say Romilda, Harry? Do you know her? Can you introduce me? Harry stared at the dangling Ron, whose face now looked tremendously hopeful, and fought a strong desire to laugh. A part of him, the part closest to his throbbing right ear, was quite keen on the idea of letting Ron down and watching him run amok until the effects of the potion wore off. But on the other hand, they were supposed to be friends. Ron had not been himself when he'd been attacked, and Harry thought he would deserve another punching if he permitted Ron to declare undying love for Romilda Vane. Yeah, I'll introduce you, said Harry, thinking fast. I'm going to let you down now, okay? He sent Ron crashing back to the floor. His ear did hurt quite a lot, but Ron simply bounded to his feet again, grinning. She'll be in Slughorn's office, Harry said confidently, leading the way to the door. Why will she be there? Said Ron anxiously, hurrying to keep up. Oh, she has extra potions lessons with him, said Harry, inventing wildly. Maybe I could ask if I could have 'em with her, said Ron eagerly. Great idea, said Harry. Lavender was waiting outside the portrait hole, a complication Harry had not seen. You're late, Wan, she pouted. I've got you a birthday. Leave me alone, said Ron impatiently. Harry's going to introduce me to Romilda Vane. And without another word to her, he pushed his way out of the portrait hole. Harry tried to make an apologetic face to Lavender, but it might have turned out simply amused because she looked more offended than ever as the fat lady swung shut behind them. Harry had been slightly worried that Slughorn might be at breakfast, but he answered his office door at the first knock, wearing a velvet green dressing gown and matching nightcap, and looking bleary-eyed.
Harry, he mumbled, this is very early for a call. I generally sleep late on a Saturday.
Professor, I'm really sorry to disturb you, said Harry as quietly as possible, while Ron stood on tiptoe, attempting to see past Slughorn into his room. But my friend Ron swallowed a love potion by mistake. You couldn't make him an antidote, could you? I'd take him to Madame Pomfrey, but we're not supposed to have anything from Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, and, awkward questions.
I'd have thought you could have whipped him up a remedy, Harry, expert potioneer like you, asked Slughorn.
Said Harry, somewhat distracted by the fact that Ron was now elbowing him in the ribs in an attempt to force his way into the room. Well, I've never mixed an antidote for a love potion, sir, and by the time I get it right, Ron might have done something serious. Helpful, Ron chose this moment to moan. I can't see her, Harry. Is he hiding her?
Was this potion within date? Asked Slughorn, now eyeing Ron with professional interest. They can strengthen, you know, the longer they're kept.
That would explain a lot, panted Harry, now positively wrestling with Ron to keep him from knocking Slughorn over. It's his birthday, Professor, he added imploringly.
All right, come in, said Slughorn, relenting. I've got the necessary here in my bag. It's not a difficult antidote.
Ron burst through the door into Slughorn's overheated, crowded study, tripped over a tasseled footstool, regained his balance by seizing Harry round the neck and muttered, "She didn't see that, did she?" "She's not here yet," said Harry, watching Slughorn opening his potion kit and adding a few pinches of this and that to a small crystal bottle.
"That's good,"
said Ron fervently. "How do I look?"
"Very handsome," said Slughorn smoothly, handing Ron a glass of clear liquid. "Now drink that up. It's a tonic for the nerves. Keep you calm until she arrives, you know."
"Brilliant," said Ron eagerly, and he gulped the antidote down noisily. Harry and Slughorn watched him. For a moment Ron beamed at them, then slowly, very slowly, his grin sagged and vanished to be replaced by an expression of utmost horror. "Back to normal then," said Harry, grinning. Slughorn chuckled. "Thanks a lot, Professor."
"Don't mention it, my boy, don't mention it," said Slughorn as Ron collapsed into a nearby armchair, looking devastated. "Pick me up, that's what he needs," Slughorn continued, now bustling over to a table loaded with drinks. "I've got butterbeer, I've got wine, I've got one last bottle of this oak-matured mead. Meant to give that to Dumbledore for Christmas. Ah, well," he shrugged, "he can't miss what he's never had. Why don't we open it now and celebrate Mr. Weasley's birthday? Nothing like a fine spirit to chase away the pangs of disappointed love."
He chortled again, and Harry joined in. This was the first time he'd found himself almost alone with Slughorn since his disastrous first attempt to extract the true memory from him. Perhaps if he could just keep Slughorn in a good mood. Perhaps if they got through enough of the oak-matured mead.
"Right, there you are then," said Slughorn, handing Harry and Ron a glass of mead each before raising his own. "Well, a very happy birthday, Ralph."
"Ron," whispered Harry. But Ron, who did not appear to be listening to the toast, had already thrown the mead into his mouth and swallowed it. There was 1 second, hardly more than a heartbeat, in which Harry knew there was something terribly wrong, and Slughorn, it seemed, did not.
"And may you have many more—"
"Ron!" Ron dropped his glass. He half rose from his chair and then crumpled, his extremities jerking uncontrollably. Foam was dribbling from his mouth and his eyes were bulging from their sockets. "Professor!" Harry bellowed. "Do something!" But Slughorn seemed paralyzed by shock. Ron twitched and choked. His skin was turning blue.
"What?
Spluttered Slughorn. Harry leapt over a low table and sprinted towards Slughorn's open potion kit, pulling out jars and pouches, while the terrible sound of Ron's gargling breath filled the room. Then he found it, the shriveled kidney-like stone Slughorn had taken from him in potions. He hurtled back to Ron's side, wrenched open his jaw, and thrust the bezoar into his mouth. Ron gave a great shudder, a rattling gasp, and his body became limp and still.
Who's trying to poison Slughorn now?
Are they trying to poison Slughorn?
Well, oh yeah, maybe Dumbledore. It was supposed to be for him. But Slughorn got it, so I don't know.
Either they're trying to poison Dumbledore, or maybe they're trying to poison Slughorn, knowing he'll just drink it, he won't give it to him.
Maybe. Maybe they don't want him to tell Harry whatever he knows.
Yeah, he clearly got upset when Harry just asked him about it.
Mm-hmm.
Which...
Perhaps it's Malfoy? Maybe?
I'm just gonna say this.
He's been acting suspicious. Suspicious things are afoot.
Malfoy did crash the party.
Exactly.
Maybe he crashed the party to plant the wine. Maybe that
mead.
was the mead. Maybe that was the whole point. He was just there to sneak that in there.
Maybe.
Or switch the bottles or something.
Or just, drop a couple drops of poison in it.
Right. Oh. Either way, Ron paid the price.
He did.
Poor Ron.
I wonder if Dumbledore would have actually drank it. I feel like Dumbledore
probably wouldn't have drank it.
Yeah.
Without at least, like, testing it first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna say that was Malfoy who did it. His foolproof plan, apparently.
It's not that foolproof. If
No.
that was his...
Foiled again by Potter. And I
Team
would
Malfoy blasting off again.
You know, Hermione's looking through all these books for stuff on Horcruxes.
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't she just look in Harry's book? With all the extra writing and apparently stuff that is not in normal books. If I was Harry, I would have been looking through the potions book to see if the Half-Blood Prince wrote anything about it.
Maybe he already did. And they just didn't mention it in the text.
I don't think so.
No.
No. I think they would have mentioned it.
But if it's Voldemort's book,
Mm-hmm.
and Slughorn didn't tell him what he needed to know about Horcruxes, and he couldn't find anything in the library, maybe there isn't anything about Horcruxes in there. Because maybe he
No,
doesn't know
but
what
if
they
it
are.
was Voldemort, I feel like there would at least be a page where he's just like, WTF Horcrux? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Like a Ace Ventura, Ray Finkel thing, you know, when he finds the journal and it's all like, kill Dan Marino and stuff. Just some crazy scribbling like that. Horcruxes, kill Slughorn, screw you. Although, if it is Voldemort's book, I'm assuming he knows about Horcruxes because Slughorn, like, blanked out parts of that memory.
Right.
Why would he do that unless he actually told him?
What a Horcrux is.
Yes. So he would know. So that will be my confirmation. If Harry does find anything about Horcruxes in that book, then
You'll
it
know.
is...
It's Voldemort's book.
Because apparently, at this point, Slughorn is the only one who knows. And we can assume that Voldemort knows. And probably Dumbledore.
Either way...
Maybe Dumbledore doesn't. Maybe that's why he's asking.
Either way, Harry's first attempt was pretty terrible.
Yeah, that was.
Hey, Professor Slughorn.
Yeah.
What's a Horcrux? What?
Oh, if only
Like-
Hermione could have been there to get some revenge on him. Oh, so I was bad talking to the shopkeeper.
Yeah, Harry, that was just
Please,
as terrible.
show me how it's done, Harry.
Yeah, that was just as bad. Oh, that was awful. So bad. So bad. Oh.
And I don't think Ron is going to have too good of a time when it comes to Lavender.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna... Yeah, that was not good.
No.
Ron, you're late! I've got to go see Romilda Vane, excuse me. That's probably not gonna go over very well.
So much for his next gold necklace. Wonder if she had it custom made, big gold letters, Wan Wan.
What, maybe. Ugh. I don't know.
I guess we will never know at this point. Oh, Hermione's gonna love this, though. Like, everything that happened, Hermione is just gonna be ecstatic.
Oh, I know.
First off, Ron just had the worst day. She probably won't be happy that he was poisoned, but the whole thing with Lavender, she's gonna love. And then Harry just failing with talking to Slughorn.
Well, he told them about failing to talk to Slughorn, and Hermione and Ron didn't care because they were both just mad because he just, like, pulled that Bezoar trick out of his ass.
Oh yeah, he did tell
Yeah.
him. That was alright.
And they were just like, F you, Harry. F you. Even Ron was like, F you.
But with Ron, I understand where Harry's coming from. I
Right.
mean,
They both
him
couldn't-
pulling it out, he could pull it off. He has that chance. But two people pull it off is just like, come on, guys.
Yeah. Slughorn would have been like, really? Both of yous?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. And it is funny. Bezoar. Where have I heard Bezoar before? Oh, yeah. Snape.
See?
Oh, see? Snape taught you something, Harry. There you go. And it potentially just saved Ron's life.
Mm-hmm. Well...
We don't know, actually, because that was a cliffhanger.
Well... I mean... He kind of learned it from Snape, but really he learned it from the book. He remembered Snape mentioning it the first day.
That's the point. It came back around. It came back around. Let me have it. Let me have it.
But...
He was like, just shove a Bezoar down their throat. Oh, yeah, because Snape said...
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Tell me, Potter, where would I find a Bezoar?
The stomach of a goat.
Mm-hmm. Shriveled kidney stone. Rock that you shove in people's throats.
I wonder if that's what it really is. It's just a kidney stone. Or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Ooh.
Here, swallow this kidney stone.
It'll help you not feel like poo anymore.
You might induce a little vomiting, but...
Yeah, do you think Ron's okay?
Yeah.
Holy crap, that's scary. That's like serious magic. That's like...
What? Poison?
Being poisoned like that, like all of a sudden you just drink something and then your friend is on the floor. Like dying, potentially. Oh, it's gotta be scary.
Oh, yeah.
And Slughorn just going like, ah! Ah! Imagine being Slughorn standing there going, I was gonna give that to Dumbledore, and now, oh my god, what is happening?
I'm really glad that Slughorn isn't the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. He cannot think quick on his feet at all.
He freaked out. He just panicked.
Mm-hmm.
So, can't even hide a memory properly either.
I know.
He like
it's pretty bad.
Oh, but he's a good potions master, so you can't be good at everything, I guess, unless you're Hermione.
I am at a bit of a loss where Malfoy is, considering...
Sorry.
Considering now they blocked the Flu Network as well.
They blocked the Flu Network. I think Harry's pretty right about being able to sneak out of the castle as far as like the rest of the security goes. And how is he disappearing off the map completely?
Mm-hmm.
Where is he going?
If I was Harry, I would just take an entire day just
to take a day off.
Watching him.
Yep, just take a day off. Just take the whole day and watch his ass. Yep. What's he doing?
Because the only thing I could think of is he's using the Whomping Willows entrance
Then
again to the Shrieking
Harry
Shack.
would see him on the map. That's on the map.
Yeah, but he never says that he just disappears.
Yeah, he does. He says
does?
When he's reading, he's like he's literally not on the map.
Yeah,
like
I know.
he doesn't see him going anywhere.
The Shrieking Shack isn't on there though.
Right.
Like he's already off. It doesn't ever say that he sees him and then he just vanishes. He's just either not there or he's there.
All right.
Because it only shows the Hogwarts grounds. He can't see anything in Hogsmeade.
That's true. He
or
can't see
anything like that.
Hogsmeade. That's true.
So there are entrances to get out of Hogwarts.
The Whomping Willow would be the
other
only
one.
one that would work.
No, there's the other one that gets into the candy shop there.
I think that one's a lot harder though, because everything, like, as soon as he gets into see if he took the one to the candy shop and then he ends up in the basement at Honeydukes, like everything's so restricted and so monitored. If he just showed up in the store, I think the owners would be like, "Hey, you're a Hogwarts student. You're not allowed in Hogsmeade right now." I think they'd like catch him red-handed, you know.
Who says he's showing up in the store? Maybe he's just using the tunnel.
For what though? Who is it? Hi, Pam. I knew it was you. You were so loud. Come here, love, baby. Baby Pam.
Making poisoned mead.
Oh, like just using that basement as like a workspace.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Or Maybe he's going out into the Forbidden Forest. I don't know if the Forbidden Forest is on the map.
I think it is. But I don't know how I don't know how much of the forest is on the map. Because it says it shows the grounds.
Hmm.
The forest is part of the grounds, so I'd assume you would at least have the part of the forest on the map. By Hagrid's cabin would be there, I would think. I don't know.
So that's the only thing I can think of. Can't apparate.
Nope.
Can't use the Floo network anymore.
Nope.
So he has to physically move off.
Ah, man, this is so good. Your theories are very interesting. Also, can we just talk about splinching for a second?
Unless there's some... The Chamber of Secrets beyond there. Well, he couldn't get in because he can't speak Parsec.
Yeah, you can't get in there anyway, so that's a moot point.
I'm thinking, could Snape have put a spell to protect against the Marauders map somewhere? Because Snape knows about the Marauders map,
yeah,
even though he doesn't know.
He knows about it, but he'd have to have it and play with it for a hot minute to figure out what kind of magic to be able to use against it. It's a very sophisticated piece of magic. I don't think he would know immediately how to counteract it.
Well, I know, but it's taken a few years. He could have figured it out by now.
But I think he would have needed to physically have the map to be able to figure it out.
Maybe. Or maybe he's using Snape's fireplace.
Snape is good. He's good. I don't think he's that good.
He's not.
Wow. Splinching. Apparition class.
Yeah, ow.
Yeah,
I mean, at least it's just a wave of the wand and you're back to normal.
Yeah, if you know how to do that kind of magic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm with Harry. I just ride a broom.
I think it's so funny that Harry just straight up doesn't care. He's like, I don't like this. It sucked when I did it with Dumbledore. I don't like it.
Right? Even when it goes right, it's not fun. So, why?
I'd rather just fly. But I feel like it's necessary to know how to do.
Yeah.
Well, like in situations like this where there's a war on, like, oh crap, I need to get out of here, like right now. If I'm flying, I'm a moving target. If I just disapparate, you don't know where I went. It's a better evasive maneuver in certain situations. Flying is probably better in other situations.
Yeah.
But splinching, poor Susan Bones. Her aunt died and she splinched herself. Oh, Pem. Her aunt died. She splinched herself. She's not having a very good year.
No, not at all.
Sound like Lavender Brown's about to have a very good year either.
No, I mean, at least she had a good, half year?
Ron's not really having a great year either.
No. Because
Ron's
Lavender has
having,
been enjoying that relationship a lot more than Ron.
Yeah. I think Ron's having... Let's see. Ron's having his book 5 Harry year. Everything bad just keeps happening.
Yeah.
And half of it is his own fault.
All of it is his own fault.
I mean...
The poison was like the first thing that isn't his fault.
Yeah, that was just really bad circumstances. That was
Yeah.
like, oh, Ron, I'm sorry. But the Hermione situation, that's totally all on him.
Exactly.
And in Hermione, I'm like, I get it. But I would keep holding that grudge too if I were her. I'm just saying.
It's not healthy to hold a grudge.
But what she needs from Ron is not giving her, so she needs to stand her ground.
Oh, yeah.
I feel bad for Harry more than either one of the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
That just sucks. And he's already thinking, like, maybe Crabbe, Goyle, and Malfoy are splitting up like us.
Malfoy found his lavender.
I guess Pansy Parkinson could be his lavender. She is, like, obsessed with him. So, I guess that is a pretty good parallel. She really, is all about him.
Mm-hmm. Who knows why, but there it is. So the next chapter.
I don't know. Love potions are so dangerous, but they're also kind of funny.
As long as you're not the one who has to deal with it, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, Voldemort's mom doesn't give you one.
Yeah.
The next chapter is called Elf Tales.
Hey! So is Dobby? Are we gonna hear about Dobby's year? And how he's been managing Creature?
Maybe.
Our conversation for the last 2 chapters.
I know. So I read the chapter title from the first time we had our Creature Dobby conversation, and I was just like, oh my god, a couple more chapters.
And we'll finally find out.
We'll check in with Dobby and see what's up. I feel like you've gone from hating Dobby in the second book to now we're at this point where we're like, where is he? What's he doing? What's happening with Dobby? I haven't heard anything about Dobby. What's he doing? You kind of like Dobby, don't you?
I mean, now that he's not trying to save Harry Potter, yes.
Yeah.
He's a much better character.
Yeah, he grew on you a little bit, didn't he?
A little bit, yeah.
Knitting him golden snitch
I wonder
socks.
if Harry's gonna tell Creature, you have to listen to everything Dobby says.
Poor Creature. That elf has suffered enough. Oh, poor Creature. Either way, please like, comment, and subscribe, and join us next time. And like Biggs, continue to ponder and wonder what the F a Horcrux is. Because we still don't know what a Horcrux is, and no one's told us what a Horcrux is. And it's very frustrating that we can't find anything in the library about what a Horcrux is. Palm Pants is very frustrated too.